Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Darefy Podcast. As most of you are aware, Darefy is a leadership and cultural transformation startup, and our purpose is to enable change and leadership capabilities in purpose-driven organizations. We support leaders, teams, organizations to fulfill their mission. In this context of disruption of work models, addressing projects as cultural transformation, talent management, employer branding, leadership, and executive development. Our focus today will be on organization and team performance. What are the ingredients for corporate cultures, team processes, and leadership models that we can leverage to impact performance? So it is with great pleasure that I introduce Agnis Stibe, who is joining us. Agnis is a TEDx speaker, a globally recognized corporate consultant, scientific advisor. He provides a disruptive Stibe method and tools for upper performance, a concept that we're going to address a little more deeply in a few moments. At Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, established the research on persuasive cities for sustainable well-being, as well as introduced the transforming well-being theory. Agnis, once again, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, happy to see you again. Happy to be on your podcast. It's going to be fun.
I think it's going to be fun. And thank you again for investing this time to share our thoughts with us. My first question to you, Agnes, is a basic question. How and where did you start to research organizational performance and team effectiveness?
Well, it's a long story, but I will give you the short introduction because it always come back to my website, my publications, my YouTube channel to get more insights. But today for you, where is this passion coming from? It's from my own experience. When I was a small kid, I was overweight, and that was not a very nice situation to be in. So I kind of need to figure out to transform myself. And then I say, well, there are things that work and they work for me. And then we're another challenge in 10 years later, 15 years later, 25 years later. And I learned, okay, there are some things that really work. And if they work for me, they should be working for others. And then I was thinking, well, I studied computer science and MBA. Oh, there are technologies, and technologies can be designed to influence performance. And then I just went down this rabbit hole of thinking, well, how can we make more effective connection with technology that help people to achieve performance? And we will speak about high performance in a minute on the different levels, individually, as a teams, as organizations, and as societies, as you mentioned, MIT, persuasive cities, societal hyper performance.
Okay. How do you define your concept of hyper performance? What are the most relevant ingredients of this concept?
I think it's a fundamentally simple, but at the same time, it's not very well understood or not very well communicated. Performance is a fundamental thing that we understand. Musicians, sports people, business people, and then we measure our performance, swimming, for example, and so forth. Organizations have key performance indicators. That's kind of very clear way how we look at the world and see performance. Next is come in consultants and say, okay, we would like to improve your performance. Is that the thing that you want to? Yeah, we would like our performance, the key performance indicators going up. And what typical perspective includes is adding more skills, trainings, practice, add more stuff. I say it's good, and you can achieve marginal improvements in any case, and sometimes more substantial, but sometimes not really. Why? Because there are some things that are hidden in the human minds that you don't see, and you hope they are not there, but they are. And those are biases, prejudices, counterproductive thoughts, and different other negative mindsets that are slowing down your performance, which is kind of assumed to be driven by the more skills and more practice and more kind of things. But if the people come to work, and let me give you an example. So there can be the most productive AI expert, programmer, let's say, comes to an office. And then one day organization decides, well, we're going to relocate our office. We will do the cost cutting. We will move our office from the downtown to the suburbs. Well, you did that. But this AI expert now is not happy about the new location. And that person who previously was hyper-performing because there were no kind of internal questioning happening in the mind, and the positive mindset was all about coding better, producing better AI products. Now there is this one thought, and it's not good because the thought says, I don't like this new location. And that drains and that takes away the energy, takes away the attention, and the performance goes down. So hyper performance is the next layer. The previous one was high performance, which the consultants say adding more skills. And then hyper performance is not about adding anything. It's about removing the barriers from the human mindsets.
Okay, so we're talking about engagement drivers, commitment drivers, and the kind of stuff that can limit people to be completely focused, be completely committed, be engaged what they do. So, what, in your perspective, are the most important ingredients? It's just a matter of beliefs. It's just a matter of being comfortable. Is the question of leadership? Is the question of culture? How can you address that issues?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not a secret that success is fundamentally determined by the leadership style and the culture that this leadership style creates. Number one, leaders have to be demonstrating themselves these kind of perspectives. And if the leader has achieved hyper performance in terms of removing negative thoughts and counterproductive thinking and different kind of prejudices, and it's very clear, humans are very socially connected. It's like how we are built. It's a social nature of interaction, and we can see that some leaders are still kind of dragged into the negative conversations and they kind of join it with pleasure, so that means they still have it. But if you exhibit from your own example as a leader and you shine that into the culture, that culture emerges, and that's very important. And the next thing is, of course, it's not enough that there is this leadership style to portray and exhibit how that culture can emerge, but also it's necessary to have handy, clear, and useful tools to achieve that, let's say, cultural transformation. So it's a mix of everything, and there is kind of a complementary possibilities on a multiple layers, starting from a top leadership down to the operational and down to the individuals.
Yes, that alignment, I think, it's the most difficult part. From my experience in the high scale and complex organizations, it's difficult to build that alignment. In your experience, how can we build that vision that translates from top leadership to line managers to people everywhere in the organization? Well, how can you do that in big organizations?
Well, just like with many things, you can achieve the results if you really seriously doing it. Most challenging areas from my work, and we published a scientific publication and a research paper on this topic last year. It's called knowledge behavior gap model. So if we want really that new perspective or the new culture penetrate all the layers, there has to be successful, efficient transition from knowing to doing. Let's give another example. Leaders come in, they exhibit their own new way of comprehending the hyper performance, but then there isn't help for the middle layer and for the fundamental layer to embrace it. And that model, knowledge behavior gap. So the new knowledge would be, okay, we will nurture the culture of high performance. That means we will pay attention to the different thoughts that are not helping our performance to be at the highest possible level. And we will do it in a certain way. And if that certain way is not communicated and people are not engaged to move from knowing to accepting as being relevant and meaningful, then people drop out and they just don't do it. But the next thing is you can even accept, okay, hyper performance, that's a good idea. And actually, I can look at my own thinking and start to pay attention and remove those barriers so that my performance as an individual goes up, as if you speak about experts. But then the next thing is, after accepting a new innovation, whichever that is, conceptual, practical, pragmatic, digital,
technological, anything.
Technological. The next thing is intention to integrate that new knowledge into their daily routines. And that is another step where people drop out because they say, yes, I accept, yeah, innovation or hyper performance, that's really good thing. But they go through their old routine without integrating that into a new one. And integration typically means time and place. How much do you pay attention and effort? And if you have helped as a leaders to move people from the knowing what is high performance to accepting as relevant for them because their individual performance goes up what people want, and then helping it integrate of what exactly do you need or do you would benefit by doing differently on a daily basis or weekly basis. And then that outcome behavior would actually show up with a much higher likelihood comparing just if you don't help. You just come in and say, this is high performance, and now you do it, and you don't help, then the integration doesn't happen, and all the layers are kind of on their own and not very successful.
Yes, I read in your work that you mentioned, in fact, that the gap between what people know and what they do effectively. How can readers help to close that gap? It's a matter of, once again, emotional intelligence, empathy, getting feedback. We are talking about that, as I would say, for the past decades. But how can readers do that more effectively and try to translate their vision and sometimes corporate vision? So they are not the authors of that vision, but they are, of course, the vision, let's say, ambassadors. How can they translate it for their teams and, of course, getting the right feedback to close that gap?
Oh, you mentioned the fundamental success factor, and that's feedback.
Okay.
Feedback, and why it's so important, we know. Do we do it properly? Not always. Why I emphasize
It's a
it even
never-ending
more.
story, yes. The feedback
It's
issue.
even more so because nowadays technologies and digital tools can give you instant feedback, and it can be given in the most neutral, most transparent ways. And if leaders who would like to help their colleagues to move through that process of the cultural acceptance and cultural development of these innovations, then feedback is number one. And it's not only that you as a leader tell something to your followers, but you also integrate digital culture, which signals that there are other people in your department, in your organization, in your branch, already transforming their mindsets and adapting to the new culture. And that signaling, the social signaling, it's extremely powerful. And it's why? Because it works to our instinctive, reactive, impulsive, and fast part of the brains comparing to the logical, rational, and slow part of the brains. So number one, of course, if the leaders embrace and use technological digital tools for supporting their communication, it's just accelerates the whole cultural transformation. And then, of course, there are even like tools that people can use on their individual basis. They can train themselves on the small things. And then some of these tools can be easily deployed on a larger organizational scale. Very effective. And thank you for bringing the feedback. It's just so essential.
I guess it's mandatory. When we talk about technology, and nowadays everybody talks about digital transformation, I think it creates the illusion that all problems can be solved with new technologies, which we know by experience. That's not true. You propose the concept, if I can remember, human artificial intelligence. How can this concept be part of the solution, integrating people with technology?
Oh yeah, another great one. So many times, even great leaders, in terms of having extremely well prepared and sharpened human-to-human interpersonal communication skills and leadership skills, not always are very successful in using technology to achieve similar or better goals. Why? Because that expectation that they would think, well, technology makes our life faster, easier, more comfortable, real-time decision-making, and all that stuff. Well, it's fine, unless we really pay attention whether technology is designed with the comprehension of human beings. Otherwise, these are, and we know, many people know, these are algorithms. What we tell these algorithms to do, they do it. And of course, now we have reached the level then the algorithms can learn from their own experience, supervised, unsupervised, and so forth. What is essential and what means human artificial intelligence? Well, it says itself, it's a merger, it's an alignment of the two intelligences, but specifically comparing, and I recently made a blog post about what's the difference between the hybrid intelligence, which is oftentimes used as this expansion of human intelligence with technological support. The difference is technology can help leaders and organizations and humans to do better only when it is instructed what the human change means, what the humans, who the humans are, and how to read their behaviors, read their mindsets, read their activities in such a way that AI can comprehend what does it mean in a human being, and then communicate the feedback in such a way that it actually works for the humans. So it's the level of technological advancement to the level it not only knows what the algorithm should perform, but it performs accounting for peculiarities of human nature, including neurology, physiology, psychology, and sociology.
Okay, I guess to average that, you need some good digital skills, good computational thinking. This is you understand what machines can do for you, how can could apply effectively to some of our business processes, some of our business pains, but knowing the variables, knowing the algorithms, and knowing how the outputs are influenced. So it's getting some of our insights. And of course, once again, I think it's important to have principles, to have values too, and to have an ethical use of technology. In my perspective, I think it's how important on that area.
Oh yeah, the holisticness. I don't know if that word exists, but that's exactly what you're pointing. And this is what we do. This is what you do, and this is what I do, and many similar other people. We try to put the things into the holistic perspective where they start to really make sense. And we know that specialists and experts in their daily roles not always have enough time and awareness to put these things. And that's why we have work. And this is what also the essential thing that we can bring, especially what I teach in some of my master classes. Great managers, they are great because they manage their primary tasks very well. But when the technology comes in, how can we make sure that this person knows what to ask and what to expect from these digital tools? And that's the area where we come in.
Yes.
Yeah, we can come in and try to put it into perspective so they succeed by using and leveraging the power of technology and artificial intelligence.
Okay. Great. One of your projects that I read about it, it was a society project. And my question is, how does that platform that you worked on empower citizens to make their communities more livable and more, let's say, upper performing? And the second question, how can we translate it to the corporate world? Both our social systems, cities, organizations. We're talking about social systems with social dynamics, people trusting each other, people building projects. How can this concept makes more hyper performing in these cases?
Oh well, yeah, it's the same interplay between humans at different scales and technology we use at the applicable scale for that we measure: individual, teams, organizations, and then communities, societies. And this is an evolution of my work from the MIT Media Lab on persuasive cities, where we can leverage the big data on the city scale to encourage people to be more pro-social, environmentally friendly. And the project right now obviously leverages the most advanced technologies, which is blockchain. Distributed autonomous organizations can be built on the blockchain platform. And then what's the idea? Many people want to do good, but they don't have any kind of tangible direct outcome, depending on how good have you done, how much good have you done. And therefore, there's distributed autonomous organizations, when you build in a blockchain, enable collectively as a society, bigger or smaller scale, and that applies to organization. This is the first connection. So organization is pretty much organized community, specific kind of rules and tasks and visions and goals. The same applies to the citizens in a neighborhood, in a city, for example. And therefore, it's equally applicable. So if there are people in an organization and they do, let's say, tasks and activities which are not prescribed into their job description, but the things they do build team spirit, and they build more of a open space for the communication, so the information exchange flows better, so actually the performance of the projects goes better, and they are not
of course.
rewarded in any direct way, but these systems would enable the other colleagues vote, or let's say report into that distributed autonomous organization that we believe this person has done this good and that good, and the other say, yeah, this person did this very well. And that system gives more of a tokens, and these tokens then can be giving that good performing social, pro-social, or pro-teamwork oriented person more of a decisive voting power for the next innovations than we possibly used. I think it's a very direct correlation. We can scale it up and down, and organizations can use it very nicely.
That's great. We're talking about, of course, rewarding and creating the right incentives to align people's with some values, principles, and behaviors. The right behaviors that, of course, are aligned with the organization's mission, vision, and can provide us the right autonomy and to do some what I think it's called job crafting. Okay, it's not in my job role specifically written somewhere, but it's aligned with the mission, so it's in my possibilities to do that. I'm going to do that. It's a kind of a rewarding system in somehow.
I would say it's a feedback system with
Okay. Also feedback, yes.
Yeah, it's a feedback system, very wise, very tailored, very effective, and then of course reward as a concept is very fundamental for us as a human beings, because we reward ourselves, we would like to reward others, and that's
Yes,
why we have
it's human nature. Yes.
yeah. And there is a its place in our nature. That's why we react to the rewards. The only thing that I would say from my work is that we need to be careful what kind of rewards, because these short-term oriented rewards, which are typically associated with the
More
performance,
transactional.
yeah, those are if it's a one time, it's a transactional, and if it's a period of time, it's a transitional. That's another piece of my work, and that's why rewards are good if they are used properly.
Yes, indeed. In these new days of these new times of these new work models, hybrid work models, remote work models, people are talking about cultural transformation. We have to align cultures, we have to align leadership models, leadership behaviors, ways of collaboration between the teams and inside the teams. How can your research and all that you were telling us in this few minutes, how can this can help teams be more effective in these new work models? Because once again, the shift from the traditional work model 9 to 6, Monday to Friday, to a complete, sometimes chaotic work model. I don't know if that person is at the office. I don't know if next week I'm going to be at the office. The commuting, the synchronicity creates, I think, the need for more self-leadership, much more alignment between teams. How can these concepts can help people to do this more effectively? Because this is a change management complex project, and I see, and you see maybe many companies and leaders struggling to build this effectively, these new work models. How do you see this?
Inevitably, everything changes all the time. Smaller changes, bigger changes. That's why when I ask my students, I say, well, tell me what has changed. And they give me a lot of different interesting examples of a change, but not the definition. And they say, yeah, it's a nice example. So can you tell me the definition? And then everybody's like, this is a hard one. Well, it was perceived to be easy, but no, it's just that we have collectively decided that we understand change, so we don't need to speak about it. But no, we need to speak about it. And when you understand that, then we can do something about it. And then the summary is, and of course, it's my arbitrary decision to frame it or define it this way, but it makes sense to me. Change is everything, and everything is a change. And if you embrace that, that means you better become the master of change rather than the victim of change. So what is the essential is most of the times starting from this awareness. So if people speak about change but not aware of what exactly it is, just think about the examples, but not about the core fundamental meaning of that. That's number one. And the same applies to the hyper performance. Let's take your example of saying, well, now it's a remote work, or you don't know where the people are. In many cases, people would think, I don't like it. That's a thought, one thought. Or people say, I don't have enough awareness of the other people. That means maybe they don't work. That's another thought. And that can be at a different scales.
We're watching it in the relationship between leaders and teams, yes.
And that is that necessity to embrace the fact that if similar thoughts reside in the minds of the leaders, in the minds of the mid managers, in the minds of the daily experts, that means these questioning thoughts are taking away their attention. So people sit at home, do the remote work, and occasionally think, am I the only one that is working now? Well, leaders, if they are listening to our podcast, will immediately recognize these are the challenges, and there will be more challenges because more of AI will automate some stuff, and people will be questioning whether I would like to welcome AI as my colleague. That's another topic that I'm speaking about. Those changes produce inevitably a long list of doubts and mindsets that are not helping the performance. So therefore, I think what the best option for the leaders is today is realizing and recognizing that necessity to deal with these invisible mindset games is the most winning strategy. And technologies can help with this. Even if you have, as a leader, you have your remote teams, what evidence you have about their performance? Always, if they use computers or phones, you have it in the log files. You have behavioral data. Then you make a small AI agent that looks and monitors anonymously what's going on. And then you see there's a dropout in a certain behavior. And let me give you an example from MIT. They were able to predict whether people going to leave the company on one parameter, whether the texts in your email responses get significantly shorter. Voila. So you just don't look at the content. You just look at the number of characters per email. And for those who dropped from their average baseline significantly down, that was a predictor for people who are about to leave the company. And there could be many other examples. So technology can make life for leaders much easier and much more successful if you understand and embrace this combination of human behavior and artificial intelligence helps to do something better with it.
That's a very good tip for corporate leadership nowadays. Try to get the most of technology and be more effective with technology, with the right, of course, the right traits, the right values, the right behaviors in organization and team performance. That's great. Agnes, it was fantastic once again talking to you. I think we have here a fantastic episode of the podcast focused on organization and team performance with great tips for leaders, for organizations. I thank you once again for your time. Hope to see you soon, in person in Portugal, if possible. To our audience, listeners, viewers, once again, thank you for your time. We'll be back in a few weeks with another episode. Thank you so much.
Always pleasure.
Thank you very much, Agnes. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, bye.